Welcome to Thriver TV, the place to break free from narcissistic abuse with quantum tools and understandings. And today I'm doing an episode on narcissistic fathers because a lot of people have been asking for this. And in today's episode, I want to approach this from a couple of different angles. The first being what has happened to adult children of narcissistic fathers, and also what challenges do mothers have with their girls and boys as a result of co-parenting with a narcissistic father. And it's my deepest wish today that I can grant you relief and solutions for both of these situations. So if you are in this community as an adult who suffered a narcissistic father, then it is very likely that the following has occurred to you. Your boundaries were never allowed to develop. The narcissistic father would have felt entitled to infiltrate your emotional, mental, physical, and psychic, and maybe even sexual space from a very young age. And it's also very likely that you suffer conditional love, you receive false promises whereby the narcissistic father didn't follow through for you, and you discovered that his own personal agenda was much more important than keeping his word. And you would have been punished emotionally, mentally, and even physically for not performing to a standard that was significant enough for his ego to be appeased. That's the conditional love side of it. And it's likely that if he was the engulfing and controlling type of parent, that would have been really accentuated. And if he was a distant, unavailable parent, then it's likely that he was off having his double life, receiving narcissistic supply, which means significance, somewhere else through his career or affairs. And either way, you were likely to feel like you were always trying to win his love and approval. You may have heard other people say, your father is very proud of you, yet you felt like you didn't hear that from him yourself. And rather, you felt criticized, always trying to meet a mark that he wanted you to meet, and you fell short from it over and over again. And when you needed your father to be there for you, he was more interested in his own needs than looking after yours. You may have been told to get over it and get on with it. And when you tried to talk to him, when you needed love and support, you got a mouthful about his troubles, how you don't have any, and what you haven't done for him lately. You also found out that when he did wrong, all he would do is blame you. He didn't take responsibility for his actions. It is likely that mother or woman that this man partnered with, your mother or stepmother, had herself been programmed with a selfish, abusive and self-absorbed parent in her childhood. And that means that she'll try to meet his needs unsuccessfully. The narcissistic father may have used you or other siblings as a tool to punish her, ridicule her and gang up against her with. And your mother may have played the role of the enabler or the martyr, or may have been a part of the toxic, abusive dance that happens when people don't take the behaviour lying down, but don't know how to lay boundaries and stand up healthily either. The pattern was there for your mother figure, raising her children in the same way that she was raised, wounded and unconscious. And for any of us coming from families of unconsciousness, it's up to us to heal the wounds and the patterns inside of us, changing it for ourselves, our children, their future generations, and our world. So let's have a look at how narcissistic fathers affected their children of different genders. And I want you to understand that this is only a guide. What may have happened to a female may have been what would have happened to a male and vice versa, and etc. So I don't want you to get too caught up in this, but it is very helpful to understand it. And please know, as I talk through this episode about he and she and, she in a heterosexual sense, this is also about same-sex relationships in the future as well. So, just keep that in mind. All right, so the message that girls learnt very quickly with a narcissistic father is this: it's not safe to be female. Her father ruled the household, and even if he wasn't present, he had a big effect on how her mother was or wasn't feeling and acting. A little girl with a narcissistic father learns that her needs and wants are not important, nor is her opinion. And if she feels hurt, confused, or sad, rather than receiving comfort and understanding, allowing her to be in her feminine, she received punishment or rejection instead. Leading from her heart and her soul with emotional intelligence, which is her greatest asset, leaves her empty, hurt, and powerless with a narcissistic father. So she starts to harden up and get into her head instead. She dismisses her inner feelings and her connection with herself, with her inner world. She starts to distrust it, which is diabolical for women. We're not meant to be in our head. Our power is from within. And then she starts to try to find all sorts of superficial ways to try to earn love and approval. She tries to be prettier, smarter, more accommodating to his needs, more successful, whatever it takes to win his approval. Yet she feels very unsure of herself to succeed. Her self-worth and her self-love isn't solid. She feels like people think she's not good enough. But when she tries to stand up and take charge, she believes she's judged as a bitch. She's being far too much in her masculine. Then she feels shot down and condemned for being too strong. Yet she knows that if she's too soft, she'll be annihilated, because that is exactly how her heart felt, torn to shreds with her father's cruel treatment when she was her softest and most vulnerable. Additionally, it's hardwired into a woman's DNA survival in the core of her inner being to win the approval of the man in her life, so that he will protect her and look after her and keep her safe. And this all starts with her father. Yes, we're in a massive shift now, and all of this is being upgraded by those of us who are women doing the inner work to move out of these terribly precarious survival programs that used to work for some women and definitely did in the yesteryears, and which are now totally outdated in this shift of sharing power and co-generating unity consciousness with men, rather than living in symbiotic and codependent relationships. However, this shift has only happened in our generation, this one now. Those of us who are 35 plus are really in the thick of this. We come from the hardwiring of symbiotic, codependent relationships that our forebears had. That's how our parents lived. But our children won't be living like this. Girls will not cling to men the way they did, and we have had to shift out of, because they have choices, independence and power, and no longer have to hand power away trying to be protected and provided for. We can do that now for ourselves as women. But try telling that to our deeply wounded DNA if we did not have a father take nurturing, healthy care with us, and if we didn't have a mother that was in her power. If we were treated harshly, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, psychically, and physically by a father, we will want a big, strong man to protect us, yet the inner programs of men, daddy hurts me, will mean that we hand over power time and time again with men who are not safe, whilst trying to get them to approve of us and protect us in life. And we've been trying to earn his approval by being more of this or less of that, or this or the other, to try to be loved and approved of. Wounded adult women of narcissistic fathers are very likely to have major attachment issues, which severely undermines intimacy. Too scared to get close and fully commit in case she gets emotionally annihilated by a man again. She may pick people who are too damaged to have true relationships with. Then she may act out extreme sexuality or take on many of his household duties, trying to make herself indispensable, to try to get connection with him, and then wonder why he still remains distant to her. She may suffer terrible panic and terror of abandonment if he tries to leave her, or if it looks like it could happen. She may get in first and deliver the strike of leaving herself. And she may feel totally uninspired and have no attraction to men who are healthy enough to have relationships with. She may act out in narcissistic ways herself to push men away when they get too loving or too close. And then maddeningly to herself, she may feel this short-lived, incredible love, desire to connect and longing if he has had enough and pulls away. And then the cycles continue. It can be a mess, and it makes for many toxic and painful relationship patterns until she realizes that her only possibility for changing these self-defeating patterns are to heal her original wounds, so that she's no longer running the programs of trauma and fear with men. And when she heals enough to be fully herself authentically without her inner wounds, she can attract and co-generate a relationship of shared power with a man who loves her as she is. And I promise you, this is exactly what happens when we get there. These men, the new order, are totally available. Many of them come from families of women who are in their power and who were fully themselves and loved by good men for being that. Or they did the work on themselves to know they wanted an equal relationship and not one with a dependent woman that was not by his side, creating life together as his equal. It's not true that good men are threatened by that. They certainly aren't. They weren't in the yesteryears and they aren't today. It's so important if you have a daughter who you're co-parenting with a narcissistic father to lead by example as a woman in your body who is fiercely loving and authentic and strong, who knows her own mind and life. This is not about being anti-men. It's about being healed enough of our own traumas to fully be ourselves in life as well as with men, which means being feminine with presence, care, kindness, and an opinion. And if we've had a father that we could not be ourselves with and be loved and approved of as that person, we have a lot of healing to do to be able to show up on this level, drop our fear of men, drop into our bodies and start generating belief and power within ourselves. When we do this, our daughters follow. And they will never tolerate a man who doesn't love her as much as she values and loves and believes in herself, whether her father is a narcissist or not. What I passionately believe is vital for our daughters, and a lot of people get annoyed with me about saying this. This is what I believe. Stop being dependent on men for love, approval, security, or survival. Narcissistic fathers know how to dodge their responsibilities, hide money, and play games. If you play victim to this, when they don't do the right thing with child support, and if you're incensed and you're jumping up and down and make it a terrible experience for yourself and your children, your daughter will also learn to be a victim to men who don't support her adequately. My take on that is this. Most abusers don't do the right thing, and trying to force them to makes you sick, powerless, and stuck in your own poverty consciousness. Break free and generate your own great life and leave them behind in the dust. Who cares what they do or don't get away with? Yes, if you can force them to justice and it isn't going to tie you and your life up for long, do it. Otherwise, move on and create your own. There is only one question I believe we should be asking ourselves. If I do that, whatever it is, will I be hampering emotionally, mentally, and spiritually myself from being free, healing, and generating the life for myself that I want to live? Notice the emphasis on myself, that I will be generating myself. No one is responsible for your life, you are. And as the only responsible parent, you are now responsible for your children's life because you are the only one who's genuinely going to do it. You can't make crocodiles roll over so you can scratch their tummy like a dog, any more than you can force a narcissist to do the right thing and give a crap about other people. They don't, not even their children, period. So the worst thing you can teach your daughter is to try to force somebody who won't take care of her to do it, while she stays disempowered and has no resources to be a generative source to herself because her mother's being a victim. And I'm sorry if this sounds really tough, but it is I've seen it happen so many times, how the pattern continues. Because this pattern is a total recipe to become a powerless victim to a future abusive partner in your daughter's future. How do our children learn? The only way they learn, I promise you, is not by us lecturing and prescribing to them or telling them how terrible other people is. It is by observing every day what we do and how we live our life. Narcissistic fathers will also often create a scapegoat out of their children. And this is often the child in the family who has incredible abilities of sensitivity, a caring attitude for others, and possesses a beautiful heart. It's often the spiritual child. There are so many scapegoats in this community. These are not qualities the narcissistic father admires, rather he detests them. The scapegoated child bears the brunt of the narcissist's cruelty the most. This child can be a boy, but she's often the girl. And this child is abused often, punished severely, and treated as worthless, and may be used as a servant to the narcissist. This child is also blamed for everything that goes wrong in the family. This is the child who is most likely to be the damaged codependent who ends up in relationships with abusive partners, trying always to appease them, fix them, and earn their love in order to try to stay safe. This is also the child most prone to anxiety, depression, breakdowns, and serious nervous system and mental disorders in the future. If you were the scapegoat, I can't recommend the NARP program enough for you to heal, because nothing short of deep, powerful releasing of traumas and reprogramming your inner identity is going to really help. The only other options really are to try to live with the terrible trauma inside you and manage it, which I don't believe is a life at all. And it certainly isn't the Thriver life. We can heal from the damage. It takes work, but I promise you it is totally doable. There are so many scapegoated adult children in this community who are now thriving beautifully. If your child is the scapegoat, it's going to be devastating for you watching this. But the more you heal yourself, the more you can empower her or him, if it's a him. Tell her she is beautiful as she is, and that he's the one with the stuff. It's not hers to fix. His words aren't true. Tell her that he's not happy with himself, and this is why he says these things to you. Encourage her to say no and have her opinions and feelings, and that they are valid regardless of what he says to her. Don't attack what he does to her because he's just going to up the ante because he knows it gets to you. Just empower her to detach from it and be herself and love the way she is. And by example, teach her boundaries and self-worth. If you are a NARP member, I also highly recommend doing healing by proxy on the scapegoated child to help her. You can have a look at Shifts Happen. If you Google Shifts Happen, Devon was the beautiful lady I worked with her child. It will help you a lot to know how to use those healings in this way. Okay, so now let's look at what happens to our sons with narcissistic fathers. And all of what I've said here in relation to daughters is true. That happens with sons as well. And additionally, narcissistic fathers are generally very hard on their sons, competing with them, berating them, and even cruelly punishing them, leaving their son feel like he will never measure up. Again, just like his daughters, the son will feel dismissed in regard to emotional and mental support and feel invalidated and not good enough when every conversation needs to be about the narcissistic father instead of supporting the boy's needs and development. Self-worth and the ability to feel validated and feel worth as a boy growing into a man is severely diminished. This can set up an obsessive compulsive workaholic type psyche, always trying to do more and get more in order to feel worthy, or a complete reversal such as giving up, even engaging in serious substance abuse activity, where the boy growing into the man has gone into depression, the self-loathing of I'm a failure, and self-destructive behaviour. Narcissistic fathers tend to gravitate to the child where the greatest amount of narcissistic supply can be gained. This is the child who is the golden child, and often this is the boy. The golden child can be a girl, but most definitely I've found in this community that boys are more common. The golden child is seen by the narcissist as possessing the qualities that he would like to be himself. So it will generally be the most strongest, the most successful, the most attractive, the most admired of all the children by other people. The narcissist grants the golden child preferential treatment and attention, using them as a measuring stick against the other children who don't measure up, and flaunts this child's accomplishments to all who will listen. This child is being groomed to be the extension of the narcissist himself. Often the golden child becomes a narcissist, sadly. In relationships as an adult, the boy who had a narcissistic father, who is not a narcissist himself, may choose victimized, damaged women, subconsciously trying to save mum this time from the trauma and the pain that she was put through with abuse. So the inner program is, if I can just fix you, then you're going to be available to love me, because the mother wasn't available either. And just like his sisters, he doesn't realize that his fears of intimacy and getting close to people and having real love relationships have been severely damaged as a result of having a narcissistic parent. And therefore, he may be choosing people who are not capable of real relationships as a way of staying safe. He may never feel good enough, always trying to prove his worth by being an overachiever, and end up with narcissistic partners who echo his father, always raising the bar and never being appeased. He could have this unconscious attraction to narcissistic, superficial, materialistic women who always want more and more of what he can make and offer them. Like his damaged sisters, the boy parented by a narcissistic father will have attachment issues. He will suffer big triggers of not being valued, understood and validated, and may act those out quite aggressively if a partner doesn't agree with him about something or doesn't show him the attention he wants at a certain time. He may also be jealous and insecure if he feels like someone is detaching from him. If people get too close to him, he may feel himself terrified, needing to pull away and back off, unable to love these people healthily or give them what they need from him, and then feel terribly lost, confused and frustrated as to why he can't sustain a healthy relationship. The golden child, narcissistic boy, even though having been given the dream run, seemingly, in comparison to his siblings, is likely to be the most damaged, in that his possibilities of healing are very slim. He's likely to believe that in relationships that he is just as entitled as what his father has been and what his father's granted him. And he'll act out like his father did. If you are a man who has suffered a narcissistic father, there is damage to heal. The formative years of you establishing a whole and healthy inner identity were compromised because of the cruelty and the lack of love, genuine love, and the lack of validation of your worth. So if your boy is being parented by a narcissistic father, the most important thing to instill in him is his worthiness as a male just is. It's inherent. You see it. You believe in him. And you know that he's going to be amazing. And he'll find his way. And he can achieve whatever he chooses to do with his heart. Back him and support him in healthy, calm, solid ways. Be the healthiest healed parent you can be for him. If your boy is being groomed as a golden child, then treat him the same as the other children when co-parenting when you have him. Don't allow him to get away with abuse, over-entitlement and grandiose behaviour. Set boundaries, hold them firm. Teach that through his actions there are consequences. And then ride the storms that he and his father will erupt into when you do this with him. Yes, you may lose him to his father, but the truth was you were going to lose him anyway if you did nothing and enabled him to be like the way he's been groomed to be. This is your only shot at him growing up not to be a narcissist. If you pander to him and try to win his approval, you're only going to make that worse. Okay, so to conclude, there is healing necessary, whether this happened to you as a child or is happening now to your child. And especially if this information resonates with you deeply, you can recognize that. So as an adult who wants to be conscious and create healing and solution, because you wouldn't even be watching this channel if you didn't, please know the power has to be in you. You've got to lead the way for you and your children. And one of the ways that I can help you the most is if you experience what it is to transform in your inner being. These videos and these episodes, they're informational healing, but transformational healing takes it to the true DNA inner identity level, which is what my work is all about. So I'd love you to come into my free webinar because you're going to start learning there how to heal and release all of this. And all you have to do is come with an open mind and an open heart, and it's totally free. It's 3 hours where I can show you how to do this. And I promise you, no matter what abuse you've been through or how long it's been wedged in your being, you can start understanding how to get relief, hope, and freedom from doing that inner work. So to sign up, all you need to do is click the link in the top right of this video, and you're going to be directed to a free 16-day recovery course where you can get a free invitation to my workshop and lots more. So I hope that this has helped and it may have explained a lot of things to you. And no matter what side of it you're on, it's always about healing our own wounds first, whether it is to do with our children or it's still to do with our wounds from our childhood. Doesn't matter. The whole thing means that we've got to lead the way. So hope it's helped. And until the next episode, keep smiling, keep healing, keep thriving, because there's nothing else to do. Lots of love. Bye-bye.